right, everybody. I'm Larry Roberts.
And I'm Sarah Losi, and this is Branded, your comprehensive guide to creative branding.
And on this episode of the podcast, we have a co-host.
Hi, Sophie.
Her name is Sophie. She's my little teacup. She used to be teacup. Now I think she's like one of those oversized coffee mugs. But Chihuahua. Sophie is 11. And for some reason today, she's being super high maintenance. Like her anxiety is just kind of off the charts. And she just wants to be held. So Sophie's going to join us for this episode of the podcast. Hopefully, that's cool with everybody.
Can I go get Kevin and just hold him?
I would like to see that. That would be interesting because
70-pound pit bull.
Yeah, Kevin weighs like 1 million, and he would eat Sophie in one bite.
I brought them to the vet yesterday, and Kevin lost 3 pounds, and Harvey gained 10, and I don't know what's going on.
Harvey eating all of Kevin's food is what's going on. I'll tell you that. Yeah. Because it's funny because Sophie doesn't get down and roam around much on her own these days because she's, like I said, she's a little older, and oh God, where'd he go?
Oh God, where's Opie?
with Opie in the house now, and he's we'll say 13 weeks old. Well, he's about 13. He's just, dude, I've never seen a dog with this much energy. This thing, and I mean, I know puppies have energy, but no, you don't get it. You don't effing get it. I promise you, because this cat, he hits a gear that is just next. It's like a pinball machine, and he's the ball, but it's like on steroids. I mean, he is just literally everywhere, and he does not stop for like 3 hours, and he's bouncing and jumping and springing and stepping and running and jumping. Dude, it's the most. I've had a lot of dogs in my time. This cat right here, and I don't know what he's chewing on, but he's chewing on something here in the studio. Looks like it's just one of my bags, which is cool. But dude, it's just the next level. So I can't put Sophie down because he will just irritate the daylights out of her. So I got to hold Sophie. So that's why we have a bonus guest with us today.
We're good with it. Hey, Sophie, right. How do you feel about branding? Great ideas.
I think she snorted a little bit. She's like,
She did. No, that's, it's a great insight. It's great insight.
Yeah, she snorted a little bit. So, but anyways, here we are, man, with this episode. We are a week removed from BABS, or for those that aren't initiated, the Badass Business Summit. And at said summit, Sarah gave a talk on how to pitch to be on a podcast. And we thought that'd be a great episode. So we're going to be talking about how to position yourself and how to pitch yourself to get on podcast, and not just any podcast, but a podcast that will, did you hear the way I said that? Podcast.
It's your podcast.
It's a podcast.
It's a podcast.
It's a podcast. But so how you would get on a podcast that would complement your brand and really do something to help you boost your brand. So this one's going to be primarily Sarah with me kind of heckling a little bit. So we're going to see how it goes.
It doesn't have to be just me. You do this too.
No, 100%.
It's funny because you and I, every week or so, we go through the list of pitches that we get for Branded.
Yeah.
And a lot of those, no offense if y'all are listening, which you're probably not based on what you pitched us. A lot of those are like examples I used in my presentation at BABS because they're just so bad.
Yeah, I saw the F word forming on your lips right there, so we'll let that slide. But they're rough.
Never curse in front of Sophie.
Oh well, she appreciates that. Look at her. Now that I'm holding her, she can barely hold her eyes open. She's just like, oh. But if I put her down, she's going to go ballistic. So, anyways. We go through the pitches that we get on Podmatch because we are avid Podmatch users. Once again, the Alex Sanfilippo fan club. We are the foundation of said fan club. You. But it's amazing to see some of the pitches that we get on there.
We got one that just said, "Hey, y'all, this ain't AOL Instant Messenger."
Yeah, ASL, please.
So bad. But it's interesting because just yesterday I was talking to one of my clients and he asked me, like, I need to come up with a standard pitch I can send to podcasts. And I'm like, no, you don't. He's like, no, you don't know. Like for like pod match and stuff, just a standard one that I can just send that's tells them who I am and about me. No, you don't, because we don't care who you are. We don't care about you. And I feel bad saying this because it sounds really rude and it sounds
It's
really
it's it's
mean.
it's, it's only slightly aggressive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's the only way I can say it, honestly, because it's so true. And that's what, like, at Babs, I talk about this, and I know I'm just gonna, no one's gonna like me there. Everyone's gonna be like, this bitch. But it's, we don't
Par for the
care.
course.
Like, you and I go through dozens of pitches, and if all you're telling us is about you, we just go right past it, because it's so true that we don't care who you are. And that's not to say, like, once we bring you on the show, we don't want to hear about you and your stories. We 100% do. But that's not what we're looking for from a pitch.
Sure.
And I can confidently say other shows are the same. And I quote him all the time, but Joe Saul-Sehy, Stacking Benjamins, he said in one of his keynotes at FinCon, the only responsibility you have as a podcast host is to your listeners. And I bring that up because when we're reading pitches, we're reading them from, like, what is going to have the most value for our listeners. We aren't like, okay, what's going to get us the best sob story, or what's going to put you, like, this guest on the highest pedestal. Like, that's not what we care about.
Right.
What is going to benefit our guests? So what we're looking for in these pitches is the answer to that question. And it's so rare that we get that.
Yeah, and if you have a brand, that brand ideally has a value proposition attached to it. So when you're trying to get on podcasts to grow your business, to grow your brand, and grow your thought leadership, then why would you not lead with that value proposition?
People think, like, I had a meeting with somebody. She's missing the conference, so she wanted to kind of pick my brain about what I'll be talking about. And she's like, "Can I pitch to you and you tell me if you would let me on your show?" And it's sure. This isn't putting me on the spot at all. Like,
Yeah, right.
all right, are you prepared to get your feelings hurt? And she gives me her pitch, and it's a beautiful story about what she's been through. And I felt bad, but I had to be like, no, if that was your pitch, I wouldn't put you on my show. And it sounds kind of like, what's the, like, pretentious, I guess? I don't
Pretentious,
know.
arrogant,
Yeah, and it
giddy,
really does.
bitchy,
I know. I'm sounding like,
arrogant.
oh, I'm a nice person, people. I am a nice person. I promise I'm not coming off like it. But we'll hear your story on the show. But I want to know what the value in that story is that my audience is going to hear and walk away with something that they can do.
Right.
And I don't need to hear your story to know that. And if I'm going through this list of, like, dozens and it's a really long story, I'm sorry, but I'm not reading that whole thing. I'm
Dude,
skimming it to
yeah,
try to find the value.
there's nothing worse than a wall o' text.
Mhm.
Right. Right. We click on the profile, we click on the opportunity. They've reached out. They said, "Hey, I'd love to be a guest on your podcast." And you look at it, and it's literally just a wall o' text. And
it's all about them.
yeah, and I don't even know what it's about, because I always click off. I jump ship right away.
Yeah. One of the examples I use in that presentation, if anyone wants the slides, just shoot me a message or an email. But one of the examples I use is one that is a wall of text, and I put it up and I say, "What's wrong with this pitch?" And I don't know what their answers are going to be, but my answer is, I have no idea, because I didn't read it, because it was just too long.
Right.
And I feel like there's a few things that people think they need to put in a pitch to a podcast, and it's like everything they would talk about, like their whole story, everything they've accomplished, their whole resume. People put their follower counts, which I feel is a little, like, weird.
Well, I
to
mean,
me.
there's some pre-programming that goes with that, because a lot of times they think that if you don't have an audience,
Yeah.
then people aren't going to want to have you on their show. But in all honesty, the vast majority of podcasts that are out there, their audience looks very, very similar to yours.
Mhm.
So the whole Instagram following and Facebook follow, all that, not really all that relevant, in all honesty. It's what's the value that you can provide.
Yeah, I mean, there's been shows that I produce that will have big name guests, and it does fine. We have a no name guest with a really great story, and it blows up because it's about the content. there's all of these things that people put in it, and it's all, I have done this and I've accomplished this and I've managed to do this in my business. And that's all really great for you, but what does that mean for me? What does that
Right.
mean for my listeners? Are you just going to get on my show and just brag about what you've done, or are you going to teach my listeners to recreate something that you've done? That's what I'm
how
looking
can they
for.
achieve the same level of expertise that you potentially have in this niche?
Exactly. And there's like a few things like, don't include your resume, don't include your sob story or whatever your story is. We'll hear it on the show if you get on the show.
Right.
But what you want to include is a very brief introduction. I usually don't even have an introduction. If I pitch without an intro, and if they want to click to my profile, they'll get my intro. But
Right.
that's not what's going to grab their attention. But if you're going to do an intro, very, very brief, like less than a sentence, with just, I am this person and this one little qualifier of why I'm valid as a guest. And then something that's either a connector or a hook. This is the part that people miss, or they do it wrong
Everybody, and here I am. You see me leaning into my microphone because my
because we
dog's.
get so mad
Well,
about. Oh,
I get mad about it too, but at the same time, I have a dog between me, so
Yeah.
I'm not as close to my mic as I typically am. So you see me leaning in and trying to really make sure that I'm heard. But at the same time, that hook is absolutely critical.
Yes.
And people come at you and they don't have a hook. They don't have something that will grab your attention, and they hit you with all of their history,
Mhm.
their work history, like essentially their resume.
Yeah.
And we don't want a resume, right? We're not hiring you. We're just looking to have you as a guest on the podcast.
Yeah, we want to know that you have things to teach and that you have a giving personality. We don't want, because people look at podcasts and guest opportunities as marketing opportunities, and that's not what it is. And if you're going into it with a mindset of like, I want to sell something or I want to promote something, you're going in with the wrong mindset, and your pitch will tell us that, and we won't have you on the show. We want you to come on with a mindset of, I have something to share and I have information to give. I have value to give. And I'm saying this in a kind of angry way because it frustrates me. And I'm saying it in a way that I sound really mean.
No,
But
I love the passion. I love the passion because that's why I quit my last podcast. You know,
yes.
my last podcast was called You're the Boss.
Mhm.
And it was for entrepreneurs and founders of entrepreneurial endeavors. But they would come on and they weren't telling their story. They weren't sharing value. They were pitching their profession, their business, their book, whatever it may
Mhm.
be. They were pitching. They were selling my audience, not sharing knowledge with my audience. And that is so huge. There's such a huge difference there.
Yes. Like, we want to know that you're bringing something of value and we have something that we can learn from you. We have something that our audience can take away. And it's funny, I think you mentioned books. We were at a different event. I think it was the Women Speakonomics. And one of the speakers said, podcast hosts love authors. And I'm sitting there like, no, we don't.
No, we don't. No,
We don't.
we do love authors, but we don't love authors because we don't want to necessarily promote your book. We are
And
not a promotional outlet for your book. We're a promotional outlet for the story and for the value propositions in your book, but we're
yes.
not here to sell your book.
Yeah, the reason we don't like authors is because a lot of them answer questions like, "Oh, well, that's in the book." So you're not offering value. And I mean, I know I plug my book as much as I can. I'm proud of it and I like to talk about it. But when I do it, I still answer the question. I'll say like, "Oh yeah, I talk about that in my book." And I say, "Here is the value. Here, like this is what I like, almost verbatim what was in my book. I am telling you." And I think the fear with authors is that if they give the things away, no one will buy their book because it's like, well, you already got all the value. Podcast episodes are 30 minutes. How short is your book that you can give it all away in 30 minutes?
And I said right, but I'm
You were
also
muted.
I was muted, so I'm I'm a podcast professional. I swear. I mean, no, but what I was doing was I was looking up my old podcast, which is called You're the Boss, which a
Mhm.
lot of people were looking for and they were listening to, and people were coming on the show, and the reason I quit it is because they were using me as an outlet, as like a sales outlet.
Yeah.
They were looking to me and my podcast as an opportunity to sell their book or sell their services. And that's not what it's about. Podcasting has evolved. It's totally different now than it was 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. It's completely different. And now it's all about delivering value-based content for the listeners. And if you're on a podcast, guess what? The host is looking for that value proposition.
And I think it's so counterproductive too when authors, or really anybody, when they refuse to actually give the full information. They just give like just enough to make you want to do it, but not enough that you could do it yourself. You have to like have them do it for you. And it's counterproductive because if you tell me how to do it, you are proving right there that you know how to do it.
Right.
And I could go learn it and try and give it several attempts until I almost get it right and waste a lot of time, or I can just hire you to do it. And I would only hire you if I know and I trust that you know what you're doing. And I will not know that unless you tell me how to do it.
So, Sarah, give us that structure. What is the structure that a good pitch is composed of?
Yeah. So the first thing, like I said, very, very, very brief bio. The second thing is the connector or the hook. And I feel like hooks we talk about a lot. Hooks are what grabs that attention and really makes them like, okay, I want to read on. But the connector is a little different. And you can use both. You can use either. But I definitely recommend you use one of them. And the connector is just the piece that shows that you did your homework. You know what this show is. And we've gotten these that do the opposite because they'll say, oh, I listened to your last episode with blank and I loved when they talked about this. And we know you only listened to that last episode. And that's not even what we talked about.
That's the funniest thing is when you get these pitches, they go, oh, I was listening to episode, and it's literally the last episode.
It's
so
always the last episode.
You know they clicked on it, they listened to 30 seconds, maybe, and then try to tie in their pitch to that one particular episode.
Yes, we just got one and I use this in my slides. It was, I loved your episode with PT talking about the future of content creation. And I just stopped reading because I'm like, PT came on to talk about taxes.
Right.
Get it right if you're going to use that. So that is not the connector you want to use. When I pitch to a lot of shows about public speaking because I talk about storytelling. Sure. And the power storytelling has when it comes to speaking on any outlet. And a lot of the times it's about like getting past the fear. So I'll talk about my own fear. I'll pitch saying like, I love that this is what you talk about because this is something I've been struggling with myself. And I would love to share my steps for how I've gotten past it. And here are my strategies that I've used. And I'm giving those strategies, I'm giving those steps in the pitch, not in so much detail that it's a super long thing, but I'm just very briefly listing them. And that is what we mean by a connector. How do we know that you understand our audience? How do we know that you understand what our show is about? You need to connect whatever you're talking about to the show or to the host. And then the last thing you want is to actually state the value. And you can do this in two ways. Sometimes I just list like, here's what I would like to share. Like here are my 3 steps or here's whatever. But I've even positioned it as goals. Like my goal would be for your audience to understand this or your audience to be able to do this right away.
Well, see, and I love that because you say goals. Many times podcasters, especially if they're not experienced, have a hard time understanding what a value proposition is. So if you frame that value prop as a goal, that makes it much more accessible to a wider audience.
Yeah, it's kind of just putting it back into layman's terms.
Yeah.
And I have so many pitches that I send out, and do they all get picked up? Absolutely not. But a lot of them do. And I've even had hosts read my pitch on their show. Mm-hmm. If I'm talking about pitching or I'm talking about being a good guest, because they want to just like double check, like, did she actually do this? Like, is she drinking her own Kool-Aid? and they'll go back and read it and they'll be like, oh no, that's exactly what you did.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
And just the fact that they're reading that on the show is proof that it worked because I am on the show. And sometimes they've been bad. Like, I mean, or sometimes they haven't been picked up. Sometimes, like, I've missed the mark. I pitched in person, not on like a website. I pitched in person to a show that does not accept guests. It's a one-person show. And I'm
Okay.
just like, oh my God, I have a great guest for you. And I'm just going on. This was before I actually learned how to pitch. I think it was the same event that I accidentally got on Stacking Benjamins. But I'm pitching and he's just like staring at me. He's like, have you ever listened to my show? I'm like,
Yep.
no,
Yep. That's
no, I
huge.
haven't.
Huge.
But I was so embarrassed. And it was Sam Parr, who huge name in podcasting,
Sure.
super respectable dude. And I'm just pitching him, sounded like an idiot. And he's like, yeah, we don't bring on guests. It's just us. I'm like, well, if you change your mind.
Yeah. If you start doing guests, I would love to be one. That'd be great.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Please forget you ever met me.
That's hilarious.
I'm sure he did.
That's hilarious. So, Sarah, before we wrap this up, what would be your top points to make if you're looking to pitch a show? What do you need to follow? What's that framework?
Brief introduction, connector, hook, and then value. It's just those three things. And I've never sent a pitch that was more than like a few sentences.
Yeah.
It should be really quick. It should be easy to read. But I think the biggest thing to focus on is going to be that value. And also noting the way that you're going to share that value. And this is one thing that I always do. I won't just say, I'd like to share my strategies. Because strategies are cool. That's great. But podcasting is about stories. So I'll say, I have strategies for doing this that I've used that have been successful. And I would love to share some of those stories and experiences that of how this has worked and how you can implement it. I always mention stories.
Okay. That's super
and
cool.
That is super, super key because podcast hosts, they're looking for value, but they're looking for stories. They're looking for people who can hold a conversation. And if you're answering questions with yes, no, okay.
Oh, that's the worst.
It's awful. Those episodes are not going to go to air.
Yeah.
And
that's one of those files that gets corrupted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm so sorry. There's a problem with the audio.
Yep.
There's some hosts that will have you do a pre-call before they let you on the show.
Sure.
And we've done a few of them. Often it's just because we want to get to know the person better. We did one because we already knew she'd be a great guest, but we wanted to kind of dig more into her, like what she does as a business. But some of them will do a pre-interview. And I've been on those where we're 15, 20 minutes in and they haven't asked me a single interview question.
Right.
And I've asked them like, was there anything like you wanted to ask me? Like, I feel like we've just kind of been talking. Like, I want to make sure that we get to your questions. And they're like, oh no, this is what I wanted. I wanted to make sure you could have a conversation.
Wow.
And we leave that call. Like, we're so excited for the recording. We know it's going to be great because we're already best friends. And I'm just like, I'm so excited to talk to you again. This is going to be great. We get on the recording and it's just like, oh my God, it's so good to see you again. Like, this is going to be so much fun because we know we have that chemistry. We know we have that connection. And they already know that I speak in stories and I don't give yes or no answers and I'm willing to share things. And that's really what we're looking for. So when you are pitching, make sure you just note that you're going to tell stories and have somewhere, I mean, with Podmatch, it puts it in the profile.
Right.
But if you have anywhere on your website, like a media kit or anything, have links to other podcasts that you've done or like videos that you've done that they can see like, okay, no, they do know how to speak and they do speak in stories and they're giving with their information.
Well, see, I think that's cool too, because you talked about a media kit and the media kit is where we have our one sheet or our bio or our resume or whatever it may be. That's not the pitch. Yes. That's about you. Yes. That's a separate piece of content that is not related to the pitch itself to get on a show.
If we like your pitch, we will ask for your media kit.
Exactly.
We don't need it yet.
Save that.
We want to know about you. We want to know who you are.
Right.
But that's just not step one. That's like the second date. That's the third date. The first date, you just got to woo us. Like that is all you need. And a fun little like pro tip for this, and it's what I've been doing forever, is if you have podcasts that you've already been on, whether it's your podcast or it's guest episodes, whatever, on Spotify, you can put all those on a playlist.
Dude, that's the coolest. You do
I
that so well. You do that
I've
so
done this for
well.
other people. If you look at like
Yeah.
my personal playlist,
Yeah.
I have like Alea Harris podcasts.
Yep. Yep.
But make a playlist of your podcast
Yeah, it's
episodes
great.
that you have done, and then you can embed that actual playlist on your website. And I do this on my media page. I don't have like a physical media kit. I have a page on my website that is my media kit.
Right.
And
Right.
at the bottom, there's the whole playlist is there, and you can see like, oh, not only like you don't even have to listen to them to know she's done a lot of podcasts.
Right.
So she's got to know what she's doing. I can click one, make sure like, okay, her audio sounds fine. Like clearly she has a microphone, and her voice isn't annoying, and I know it is, but like we can pretend.
I was gonna say, hold on.
Because those are kind of the things that we look for. Like when you and I go through the pitches that we get,
Yeah.
they give like examples of episodes, and we'll go and just make sure that we like the way that they present
Definitely.
themselves and the way that they speak, and we look to see, are they using a microphone?
Yep, that's the first. That's first and
Yep.
foremost. And I know I may sound shitty today because I'm so far away from my mic, but it's
You sound better than a lot of them.
Sophie's in between me and my mic, so I just have to accommodate her today. But yeah, 100%. We always look to see exactly how you sound and how you look on video as well.
Yeah. And with how you look, it's not about like appearances. It's not about
No.
we only let the pretty people on.
No.
You are beautiful.
Yes.
Even if we don't accept your pitch, you're still beautiful. It's
Yes.
Are you in a really messy like lobby that's really noisy? Did you show up, like did you clearly put effort into just looking professional, or are you showing up super messy? It's about the effort that you're putting in, because we put so much effort into our shows.
Yeah.
We put so much effort into getting ready for them, planning the content, producing the content, getting it out, sharing it on social, creating assets for you to share it on social.
Sure.
And if you're just showing up, like you just rolled out of bed, you look a mess, and you're talking into your like Apple earbuds, whatever they are.
Very technical. Good job. Yeah, nice.
They have a name.
Earpods? Maybe?
AirPods.
Yeah, there you go.
And you're just talking into your AirPods?
Yeah.
That makes our job harder with production, and you're not putting any work and you're not putting effort in.
Right.
So we just want to see that you're going to put effort in.
Yeah.
And that you care about the content you're creating with us.
100%. So yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line is come to podcast prepared to represent you, prepared to represent your brand, and understand that, we take this entire form seriously, and we hope you do too.
Yeah. And we say that we still want you to have fun. We want it to be a good time, but just make it look like you put the effort in. And we just spent the last half hour making me sound so mean. And
you're super aggressive, and no one likes you. I mean,
seriously, I'm sorry, guys.
Is rough. This episode is rough.
I'm so sorry. I love all of you.
My feelings are hurt, and I'm a co-host. I'm hurt on the inside right now.
It's constructive criticism. I'm saying this because I want you to do better. I want you to be better at this, and I want you to get on all the podcasts that you pitch to.
Yes.
And be my friend. I'm really nice. I'm sorry. I adopted 2 rescue dogs. I donate to charity sometimes. I'm sorry.
And I have a dog in my lap, so I'm cool with dogs too. But anyway, no, seriously, this was a very we won't call it aggressive, but direct episode. And I think, I'm so sorry, Soap. I just poked her in the eye. But we have to understand these things. And we don't hear this message very often. How do we pitch to really be effective and really get on podcasts? So I think this episode was very constructive, very informative. And I think a lot of people can learn how they can position themselves going forward so they get on more shows that not only benefit themselves, but benefit the audience of the shows that they're on. And that's absolutely critical. So,
and now moving forward, if we get some crappy pitches in our inbox, we know you don't actually listen to our show. So don't play yourself.
Oh man, don't play yourself. You done played yourself. Holy shnikes, that was aggressive. But anyways, no, I love it. And hopefully this was a very educational episode because again, you don't hear this content very often. You know, you hear that you have to pitch, you have to get on podcasts, you need to get yourself out there, but you don't necessarily hear how to pitch. And Sarah did an amazing job at the Badass Business Summit just last week. And we thought this would be extremely valuable for every one of you out there as well. So hopefully you found some value in this episode. I know you did. So if that's the case, please hit that subscribe button so we can continue to bring you these amazing episodes each and every week, even if they stink a little bit. And with that, I'm Larry Roberts.
And I'm Sarah Lacey. We'll talk to you next week.